we are literally witnessing the beginnings of one of the greatest labor movements in Canadian history since the Freedom Convoy trucker protest. And what most people don't realize is that not only can this movement grow a lot more than it is right now, but it has the potential to unravel the Liberal Party's grip on power in Canada and can actually unseat Mark Carney. Because this whole story started just last week on the 13th of August, when the Canadian Union of Public Employees, or CUPE for short, delivered a 72-hour strike notice to Air Canada, which gave way to this soon historic clip. Let's take a look.
Over here at this picket line in Montreal, these people, these flight attendants are saying that Air Canada cannot fly without them, and they want that to be known. So this is their message to Air Canada. When I was inside of the airport, I looked at the board to see how many flights were canceled. It was red on the side on a bunch of Air Canada flights.
Air Canada, who's led by CEO Michael Rousseau, and you should remember that name because it's going to be very famous very soon, chose to not continue any negotiations as their initial offer was declined. And actually, as of recording this video, a major breaking news from CEO Michael Rousseau just broke out, and we're going to touch upon that very, very soon. Because Michael Rousseau felt that it would
Air
be
Canada
better would instead threaten to lock the employees going on strike out via their own lockout notice that was issued later on that same day. But why? Why was CUPE so adamant on striking? And now this is the most important part. CUPE chose to go on strike because back in March, the organization failed to reach an agreement with Air Canada to provide fair wages to their employees. And just how fair are we talking? Well, did you know that over 35 full-time hours of work goes completely unpaid by any junior flight attendant that's still working for Air Canada, as this work is considered groundwork, which, if it's even paid, gets paid 50% of the actual wages that they are meant to be paid. And if you didn't know, junior flight attendants get a grand total of $1,952 per month before tax. So that's right, a full week's work, full-time labor goes completely unpaid. And on top of this, Air Canada forced CUPE to arbitrate, which basically means to settle and to agree upon no future changes. And with this began the chaos in Canadian airports that we are seeing today. Over 130,000 passengers were stranded within a few days due to delays and cancellations, which is actually beginning to cause economic chaos to Canada. Now, I want you to imagine yourself running this country. I want you to imagine that you are prime minister. You see your citizens in economic distress, who, by the way, are working for a corporation who has been able to see record profits year over year, and you're met with a few options. Now, I want you to feel and sit back and think, what would I do? What would you do if you were in the same position that Mark Carney is in? Well, I'll tell you what his Minister of Jobs just did, because under the direct orders of Prime Minister Carney, Minister Hajdu chose to do this.
I have exercised my authorities under Section 107 of the Canadian Labour Code to direct the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order the parties to resume and continue their operations and duties in order to secure industrial peace and protect the interests of Canada, Canadians, and the economy.
She chose to invoke Section 107 of the Canadian Labour Code, which forces Air Canada workers to return to work on August 17th. But the leaders at CUPE had this to say about it.
What's the limit that you're prepared to exert here to try to make your point?
There's no limit. We're going to stay strong. We're going to stay committed to making sure that those workers can do the job that they love doing and actually be able to afford a roof over their heads, to afford caring for their families. And if it means folks like me going to jail, then so be it.
Calling this order unconstitutional and stating that they're okay with being essentially martyrs by going to jail is the last thing anybody in power wants to hear. As a result of this, the strike has been declared illegal. That's right, a first world nation has declared striking illegal. And on top of that, Air Canada actually paused and is probably not going to release their financial outlook, as they are projecting major losses. Now remember, earlier in the video, I said that CEO of Air Canada, Michael Rousseau, just said the most insane thing that I couldn't believe he would choose to say out loud. And it's all found in this clip right here.
But you didn't make any provisions before to ensure that passengers, or at least some of them, would get to where they're going?
Well, we thought, obviously, the Section 107 would be enforced and that they wouldn't illegally avoid the Section 107.
Right, so you made no provision because you didn't realize the union would do this.
They gave us no indication they would do this.
Right.
To summarize, they literally didn't have a plan other than force the workers back to work. And I really want you to understand this. The CEO of Air Canada, as well as Prime Minister Mark Carney, colluded together and expected that Canadian workers would just sit back and accept that their rights and labor are being completely infringed upon. Now that you're up to speed, let's see who said what on the online front. And on the political front, we had a surprise appearance from the most hated politician in Canada. Nope, it is not Trudeau. It is actually this guy instead who had this to say.
Flight attendants at Air Canada are fighting back. They're saying, hey, enough's enough. Like, we should not have to do all this work and not get paid. So they're fighting back, and they have the right to fight back. On top of that, Air Canada is a company making pretty significant profits, and they're not paying the flight attendants a decent salary. It's just wrong. And so we got to stand in solidarity with these flight attendants. These are our fellow brothers and sisters.
Now, I know that these top comments are quite ruthless towards him, and rightfully so, like the famous Mario Zelaya saying, "You're done, you decimated your party, you came in third in your own writing, you betrayed all of Canada just for your pension," which is all 100% true. Now, I know these top comments are very, very negative towards him, but a lot of the comments, which is about 600 of them, are showing that average people, although they absolutely hate Jagmeet Singh, they actually agree with his message currently. His image is so destroyed that there's no way anybody could fix that. Like, it's a PR Olympic gold medalist would not even be able to fix this issue. And in addition to that, Mark Carney still has said nothing about this whole situation. Looking at his online profile and presence, there's nothing about it. And this is kind of major, especially considering that his Minister of Jobs chose to use a very powerful part of the Canadian Labor Code, which is rarely used, which actually can be also quite authoritarian. So instead, he's focusing on more foreign policy, even though this is one of the most important things that has happened and is going to happen in internal domestic Canadian politics. Now, if you think that it's weird that Mark Carney isn't really talking about this, what's even stranger is that Pierre Poilievre still hasn't said anything about it. Even though he's supposed to be the people's champion, he's not really saying anything about this protest, this strike, which is going to affect hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of people, as the infrastructure in Canada is going to be paralyzed. Like, there's no way anything is going to be able to move if this escalates. Now, Carney's position is very clear, since he's the one who gave Patty the order to issue unconstitutional return to work. But for Pierre, this is a major story that he has to get in front of, but he still hasn't. Like, there's no posts, there's nothing about it. Now, could it be that his by-election is coming up fairly soon? Or could it be that the lack of a strategy that the federal Conservatives have is still preventing Pierre from making a clear choice? Either way, it is insane that Pierre is not talking about this, because this story is one of the most important stories that is going to come up in the near future for at least domestic Canadian politics. And as I mentioned, on the online front, every single major Canadian political influencer is already in the same boat. Even if they're left-wing or right-wing or whatever, everyone is saying the exact same thing, that the Carney government is overstepping, that Air Canada is completely in the wrong, and that the flight attendants, as well as the quality of service that's needed for a national airline, should be treated better and should be better. And in relation to the online front, literally while I was recording this, I saw some breaking news that I do want to show you. So let's go to Mario. Currently for Mario, he just received a text message from a flight attendant who is stuck in another country. "Hey Mario, I would like to stay anonymous. I am a flight attendant with Air Canada stuck in Rome with my crew and 2 others since the 14th. Our pilots got sent home and we are still stranded abroad with no intention from Air Canada to bring us home. Some crews have been stuck in India since the 12th. Almost a full week well, literally going to be a full week of being stuck in a country. We need to let the public know that our company has no intention of helping stranded crews get home. Our union is currently trying to help us, but it is proven difficult. If the public knew this, Air Canada would get their shit together and send us home. Thank you for all you do. A very underpaid and stressed Air Canada flight attendant. Share this video as wide as you can, just because this is a crime. It is absolutely insane. Like, literally, if you are the head of a company and you are just going to allow your employees to suffer like this, that's criminal. It's ridiculous. How can you even sleep at night? In addition to this, we also have another pretty major news about Air Canada, where right now the demands that Air Canada flight attendants are asking, which basically they want just to have fair livable wage. They want to have their groundwork be compensated either fully, if it is compensatable for their rank as a flight attendant because they're senior and junior, or at least compensated. That's it. So the current demands that they're claiming is $103 million per year. The cost of the strike for Air Canada is $50 to $60 million per day. The entire Air Canada board of directors under Michael Rousseau should all be fired. Absolutely, they should be fired. The shareholders for Air Canada are just going to get shot. And by the way, who is a major shareholder of Air Canada? And that is Brookfield Asset Management, the same Brookfield that Mark Carney was so involved with. All of this brings us to why this Air Canada strike is actually gonna be probably bigger than the Freedom Convoy trucker protest that happened 5 years ago. The Freedom Convoy were fighting for the rights of every single Canadian like you and I. And let's not forget, they were loosely branded as criminals, especially since certain elements of theirs were blocking certain key highways, which was preventing food and certain medical stuff to be distributed properly. But after this loose labeling, they were quickly removed and treated as criminals and tried as criminals, which some might even say that it's because of their extremely fast-growing popularity under the Liberal government of that time, which is the same Liberal government of today, let's be real. This Air Canada strike is affecting more people, has a bigger effect on the economy, is widely popular and agreed upon by every party, and has the backing of every single voice in this country, online and offline, except for the government in power and the Air Canada Corporation. If the Carney government doesn't do something about this, their image and legitimacy will not only be in question, but could potentially end up snapping an election should the federal Conservatives pick up the pace.